Somewhere in a drawer, there's a photo of you turning 3. A cake, a candle, a small hand reaching for it. You have seen this photo 100 times. You have no memory of that day at all. Not a blurry one. Not a fragment. Nothing. You were there. You were awake. You were, by every measure, a conscious little person having a birthday. And yet the moment is simply gone, as if it happened to someone else. Most people assume this is just because they were too young to pay attention. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain did not fail to notice that day. It failed to file it away in a place you could ever reach again. And the reason why says something unsettling about what memory actually is. For most of the 20th century, this gap was called infantile amnesia. The term itself comes from Sigmund Freud, who noticed in his clinical work that adults could recall almost nothing from before age 3 or 4, and theorized it was some kind of a repression. He was wrong about the cause, but he was right that something real was happening, something that deserved a name. Here is what actually happens. A baby is born with a brain already capable of learning. Within days, an infant can recognize its mother's voice. Within months, it can recognize faces, sounds, routines. So memory clearly exists early. The question is not whether infants can remember. The question is why none of it survives into adulthood. Psychologist Patricia Bauer, who has spent decades studying memory development at Emory University, found something surprising when she tested toddlers directly. Very young children can recall specific events, sometimes for months. A 2-year-old can remember a trip to the zoo. A 3-year-old can describe a birthday party in real detail weeks later. The memories exist. They are just being formed inside a system that is still under construction. Picture the hippocampus, the part of your brain that stitches moments into long-term memory, as a library still being built. The shelves go up early, but the cataloging system, the part that lets you search and retrieve a specific memory years later, is not finished until somewhere around age 7. Before that, memories get made. They just do not get filed in a way your adult brain can ever find again. That is the twist most people never hear. Your childhood was not empty. It was simply written in a system that got renovated before you learned to read it. There is a second piece to this puzzle, and it has nothing to do with neurons. It has to do with language. Researcher Carol Peterson, who has spent much of her career at Memorial University studying how children talk about their earliest memories, found that kids who develop language earlier and who are encouraged to narrate their experiences out loud hold on to memories longer and recall them in more detail. A memory becomes durable, partly through the act of describing it. You do not just experience an event. You tell yourself a story about it in words, and that story is what survives. Before a child has enough language to build that internal narrative, an experience can be vivid in the moment and still vanish completely once the moment ends. No story, no scaffolding, nothing for the memory to hang on to as the years pass. Now here is where it gets stranger still. Memory is not just personal. It is cultural. Psychologist Chi Wang at Cornell University compared the earliest childhood memories of American adults and Chinese adults and found a striking difference. On average, American adults recalled memories from earlier ages, and those memories tended to be longer, more detailed, and centered on the individual. What I did, how I felt, what I wanted. Chinese adults' earliest memories tended to arrive later and were often shorter, more focused on family, routine, and social context. Why would culture change how far back you can remember? Because memory formation is tied to a developing sense of self. In cultures that emphasize individual narrative from early childhood, parents talk to toddlers differently. They ask more questions. What did you do today? How did that make you feel? What happened next? Every one of those questions is, in effect, training a child's brain to build the exact kind of self-centered story that becomes a lasting memory. Where that kind of narration happens less, the self-focused memory system simply has less practice, and childhood amnesia tends to stretch a little further into the years that follow. Your earliest memory is not a fixed biological fact. It is partly the product of the conversations that happened around you before you could even answer. So the picture becomes something like this. A baby's brain is absorbing an enormous amount from the very first day. But 3 separate systems have to mature in a line before any of it becomes a memory you can carry forward as an adult. A hippocampus capable of long-term storage, a language system capable of building narrative, and a sense of self robust enough to be the main character of that narrative. Until all 3 come online together, roughly somewhere between ages 3 and 7, experience simply passes through you like water through open hands. This is not a flaw. It is a design choice, the kind evolution tends to make, when the cost of remembering everything outweighs the benefit. A toddler's brain is undergoing one of the fastest periods of change a human will ever experience, adding roughly 1 million new neural connections every second in the first years of life. Locking early experience into permanent, retrievable memory during that kind of restructuring would be like trying to save a file to a hard drive that is still being installed. The smarter strategy, biologically speaking, is to let the early brain learn freely, absorb patterns, build instincts and reflexes and emotional templates without wasting resources trying to preserve the specific footage. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Even though you cannot recall your 3rd birthday, it may still be shaping you. Bauer's research and related work in developmental psychology suggests that early experiences, even ones that leave no retrievable memory, can influence emotional patterns, attachment style, and stress responses later in life. The footage is gone. The effect of the footage is not. You are, in a very real sense, carrying the influence of thousands of days you will never be able to watch again. Think about what that means for how you understand yourself. You probably think of your personal history as something you can review, like scrolling back through old photos in your mind. But the truth is closer to this. You are the product of years you have no access to, shaped by a version of yourself you will never meet again, running on instincts laid down before you had the words to describe them. This is also why parents now photograph and film almost everything. It is not vanity. It is an attempt to outsource memory to a system more reliable than a toddler's still-forming brain, to hand a future adult back a version of their own childhood that their own mind could never have kept on its own. So the next time you look at that photo of your 3rd birthday and feel nothing, no flicker of recognition, no warmth of nostalgia, understand what you are actually looking at. Not a memory you lost, a memory that was never meant to be kept, made by a brain that was busy becoming the one you use right now.